Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be talking to you about tools, different types, but most importantly, when it's time to replace them, what you can do about it, when you can still keep them, and when it's a danger to you. So we're going to be talking about different types, power tools, hand tools. Got my tool belt loaded up with a bunch of different types. So hopefully this will give you some guidance into giving you the most longevity, but also keeping you safe with your tools. The first type of damage and difference we're going to be talking about is a physical difference, meaning you can't quite see it. Maybe you can if you look closely, but you're just noticing your work a little differently. For example, this circular saw here, I have a Diablo blade, used it a good amount, but if I go through it, if I kind of run through it right here, you probably won't be able to see it, but there's a couple different saw blades. Let me find it. There's a couple different saw blades where the actual blade is chipped off. That's going to lead to potential danger with some kickback, a little bumpy, and also it's just not going to be it's quite as quick as it initially was as the blades got dull. If the blades are just dull and it's slower, it's probably fine to figure out a way to sharpen it. If you know how, find someone else to sharpen it. You probably don't need a new one. But if you take a look and you start to see those things are broken, then you might want to consider getting a new one because it's a danger to you. Another type of physical difference is drill bits. You probably aren't going to be looking extremely close at them, but over time you're going to notice as they dull down, they're going to get a lot slower. If you know how to sharpen them, you can do that and it'll add a lot of longevity to them. However, just pay attention and be like, why isn't this going in as fast as it once was? So physical differences, if you notice it, take some time and evaluate it, and you can probably fix it or prolong its life a little bit longer, so you don't need to change it right away. Utility knife's another one. For example, the blade, you aren't going to exactly see the difference, but you're going to know pretty easily. This isn't cutting as fast, and either you sharpen it or most likely just get a new one there. 20 cents a blade, getting a big pack. So physical differences is the first one. The next type of damage to your tool is visible damage, either in the form of this one if you were looking closely with those saw blades chipped off, or for example, I have a pair of tongue and groove pliers right here. There's a lot of rust on them. This rust, you can probably clean it off, but if not, it could be a danger to you if you're touching it. However, the handles right here are still fine. So for me, a little rust on the top, although it's not ideal, this is still very usable. On the other hand though, this right here, it's a wrench to take off saw blades. It's really rusty. If I try and clean it off, I might be able to get some, but there is no handle, and so I'm going to be touching right here. So this is probably something that, one, it's a pretty simple tool, but it's something you're going to want to change. So visible damage like rust, try cleaning it off, or maybe it's fine if it's not where you're touching, but if you're going to be working on it without gloves or in an area that can hurt yourself, probably time to change it. So visible damage, that's the next one, something you want to keep out for and see if it's still workable for you and safely too. There are some tools that can last a long time, potentially a lifetime. However, I still think it's important to take an evaluation of your tools every 5 years or so, if not less than that. For example, catch paw, just solid steel or a hammer. If you get a good quality one, these can last a lifetime. I mean, yeah, they might dull down a bit. If you sharpen it, this steel, you can throw it. I mean, it's probably not going to get too damaged, so you can use these for a long time. On the other hand, there's a lot of other tools that you might want to either sharpen, like I got some nips right here, or they might get a little damaged over time. One of the ones that I've noticed is a pair of screwdrivers, for example. It might not seem like there's a lot of damage, but over time, the bits, at least, the bits, maybe not the grip, but the bits can get dulled down and stripped a little bit, and it can lead to you ruining some screws. It's not quite as fast. You don't get the same grip and the torque. So these can last a while, but every once in a while, just take a closer look and see how they're doing in quality. So if you think a tool is really good, just at a minimum every 5 years, take a look at it, work your hands around it, feel it, any cracks, any differences, and of course, is it still working the same way? But there are tools like those solid steel, cat's paw, hammer, that's probably going to last you a long time if you take decent care of it. The next set of tools you're going to want to pay attention to is the ones that require regular maintenance. For example, if you're doing sanding, you're going to have some face masks to protect yourself. Those ones, I don't know the exact specifications of yours, but the manufacturer will have maybe 3, 5, 10 uses, and you're going to want to follow that and replace it, because otherwise it's not as effective for you. Some other ones that you're going to want to pay attention to, as I mentioned before, the utility knife. They're extremely sharp when you get them, but if you're working in wood and different things, they can get dulled down pretty quick. So it's good, just buy a box of 50 or 100 blades. It's not too expensive, and just every couple of weeks, if you're using them a lot, just change it out. Even if it's still working, if you're using it a lot, it might just be worth the 20 cents or so per blade to give yourself that quick and efficient, good cut. Another one, carpenter's pencil or any pencil. You're going to need to sharpen this. Using that utility knife is often the best way. But once it starts getting low, at less than like 2 inches, I can still write with it. But it's probably not worth the hassle for me. And again, 40 cents for one of these, or you buy it in a pack of 20. Just get a bigger one. It's a lot easier. Another thing, different tools, like I said, those drill bits, but also I got a chisel, things that require being sharp, like that utility knife. A chisel, if you're using it a lot, it's going to get dulled down pretty quick. But the good thing is, because of how flat it is, and if it's a good quality, solid piece, you can get a sharpening stone and real easily. Every couple of weeks, just spend a minute or two on it, and you can make this last a much longer time. So take track of what tools require regular maintenance and pay attention, give care to them to fulfill that for your tools, because that'll make them last a lot longer. Another tip we have is to figure out what tools are slowing you down a little bit and figure out if the whole thing needs to be replaced or just a part of it. A drill, impact, or any sort of electrical device for that matter, it may start slowing down over time, and you might think you need a whole new one, but often just buying a new battery is all you need. I mean, they're still a little bit expensive, but instead of replacing the whole thing, try just getting a battery or borrowing someone else's, and you might be able to save yourself some money. Also, if you have a little bit of electrical experience, maybe take a look at this. The motor's not working, you can buy a cheaper part. Circular saws too, for example. I mean, these can last a long time. This is a really old one, but just changing the blades out regularly, keeping it greased up with some oil, it'll last a long time if you take care of these electrical ones. However, there are certain parts that are going to be a bit more replaceable, that you can get a more expensive one, but if you're using it enough times, it's probably still going to break. This tape measure, for example, tape's arguably one of the most used tools in building. It's lost its spring a bit. I mean, kind of got to give it a little bit back. So with this type of thing, I probably don't want to be using this on a job site or something, because it's just going to slow me down, but it's not a bad tool, so it's something I'd still keep at home. But just after a certain point, it just loses some of its ability. Chalk boxes, chalk lines, that's another thing, for example, that you can buy a $20, $30 chalk box, and maybe it's going to last you a couple months longer, but at the end of the day, these things get abused a good amount, and it's probably going to break. So what I prefer is just buy a bunch of cheap ones, $5, $6, and just replace them a little more frequently, because they're going to break at some point. So it's a decision you can make, that do you want to spend a little bit more, have a little bit more lifetime, or just buy a couple. I mean, you can find them on discount for cheaper and just go through them every once in a while. So another thing for you to consider. Your tools are an investment. Power tools, circular saw, drills, they cost a lot of money. And to replace the whole thing can be expensive. That's why it's important, like we said, try and diagnose it. Take a little time. Maybe it's just the battery, new saw, or different little parts of it that you can save money and time. Certain tools, like utility knife, carpenter's pencil, they need more regular maintenance. And it's pretty cheap, but it's going to save you time and effort in the long run. Other tools, like I said, those tape measures and chalk boxes that get abused a lot, you can spend a little more and get a nicer one, or up to you, get some cheaper ones and just go through them more often. There's a lot of choices in your tools and how you take care of them, but ultimately it's about being effective and efficient on the job site, while also keeping yourself safe. Hopefully you found these tips useful, and if you want any more, you can visit us at rdawg.com. That's rdawg.com. Thanks for watching.